So welcome back to yet another exciting episode of DNA Reviews, considering we actually missed last week. So it's actually been a fortnight since we've been around, and we are chopping at the bit to talk a bit about Star Trek. Mr. Nick, how you going tonight, old son?
Really good, thank you, Dags. How you doing?
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty groovy at the moment because this episode came out last week. Nick and I have not discussed it at all. So I've got no idea what his opinions are, and he has no idea what I think. And good old Jack Parker's joined us, which is absolutely fantastic. So there's a lot to cover off in this particular story. It's actually kind of overwhelming as to how much information there was. And for those who don't know, it was called The Life of the Stars, which has got nothing to do with Hollywood celebrities, right? Because typically Life of the Stars refers to 100 years worth of movie moguls, etc., etc. And as always, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode now, then you are definitely missing out. So, Mr. Nick, off the top of your noggin, old son, Life of the Stars, how did it work for you?
I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. It went back, I think, to that core of what Star Trek is, with the emotional aspects. That felt very Voyager-esque, I think, is probably the best way to put it. Not just because the Doctor was mainly in there, but I really enjoyed this episode. Definitely be one of my top for the season, for sure.
Well, guess what, fans? As good as it was, we're going to start on a negative, right? So we start off with the Doctor having a bit of a gas bag about life, universe, and everything. And I'll tell you what, I was still pissed off about these freaking hemlines. What is the deal with that? I couldn't believe it. It's like the first thing I see is like, that looks shit. Can someone please change that in the costuming department? So I just wanted to have a bit of a grizzle about that. So yeah. So I'm only joking. It's all good, but you got to admit, if you're an OCD person like I am, it does kind of drive you a bit.
Well, Dags, the good news for you is they've already filmed season 2, so they'll still be in there because no one has said anything. So maybe season 3, you'll get to see regular costumes. But yeah, the chops are staying where they are.
Freaking, it's bullshit, mate. It's not even a good design. It's the first thing I looked at, right? I looked at the back, I looked at the front, and I go, oh man, I'm sick to death of these freaking ridiculous hemlines. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I thought it was a good way of starting off. So the idea of the Doctor is having a bit of a gas bag about his long life. And of course, the funny thing is that, he's been around for 1,000 years or whatever. But of course, Aki's been around for a shitload longer than that. So it's kind of like, it's not exactly an apples for apples comparison, but it was a good way to start the episode. And I knew from the outset when this started, it was going to be very much focused on him, on the old Doctor, which was actually kind of cool. And I could see why he just goes through the motions of life or existence. Effectively, it's not even living. And that's the thing, because he sees all these people come and go in his life, but he just stays the same the whole way through. And I actually thought that was actually really quite interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a good opening monologue. There've been a number of episodes now that have begun with some sort of opening monologue. Obviously, episode 1 set everything up. You had the one with Jaden, had an opening sort of monologue. The one with Sam, her first one, had an opening monologue. Now you've got this one. So I guess when they're centering it around a certain character, they do a little bit. It wasn't even really exposition, to be honest. But it worked. It was really good. And anything with Robert Picardo's great in my book. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very, very groovy, because in the end, this episode had a lot going for it, and there was a lot to take on board, and but there's a lot we got to cover off as well. Speaking of things that occurred, Tarima came back, and she's no longer part of the War College. She's now part of Starfleet Academy, and was not at all happy about it. So you do wonder if you're going to see a lot less of those characters from that side of the fence, which, funnily enough, if you're a bit of a conspiracy theorist, you'd say, yeah, that's what they've done, so that way they don't have to cast those actors or pay them to turn up in the series. They could just let them all go. I mean, we've lost the Vulcan guy, but you've got the Romulan and the other dude and whatever. So you do wonder if they're going to be making an appearance in the short term, because as is often the case with a lot of TV series, you can always tell when there's a big cast involved who they bring in and who they leave out. Like, once again, Thok is not in this episode at all. Yep. So it's sometimes it's purely a cost thing to say, well, if you bring all the cast in, they all talk, it all costs money, let's just reduce the cast. Anyway, look, I don't know, but it was an interesting sort of way of looking at it. And from Tarima's perspective, she's clearly not the happiest camp in the world. And it's kind of like echoing her past, where she would turn up and people are just looking at her. right? She's like the odd one out of the group, and she knows she's the odd one out of the group. And I think the way they tackled that here was actually really well done. Because in the end, if you're the person who's watching her walk through, how do you react? Hey, welcome back. Good to see you. Oh, you're looking great as always. Love your hair. Excellent. You look great in the grey uniform.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, it is just 100% awkward. So, yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think?
I did find it a bit weird at how ostracized she was, in the sense that she kind of did save everyone.
Yeah.
And she was in a coma. Like, she didn't, and she blasted some bad guys with some noise thing out of her mouth. Like, it's not really a big deal, you know, in this universe. My God, you've got a guy who vomits glitter. Like, you know, so I don't really get why everyone was so affronted by her. But yeah, look, I guess they had to do it had to work for the story, but yeah.
I think it's purely the scenario of, as I said, people just not knowing how to react. And they say, oh, the woman's coming through, the one who killed all these dudes, right? Oh my God, is she going to go completely postal as soon as she walks in? And of course, I think in real life, what happens is a person knows that this is going to be really, really awkward, and they just exude awkwardness, as it were. Yeah. And I like the idea that they've now put an extra hard yakka thing in her neck, so she can't rip it out next time, and so they've juiced her up a bit more. I thought it was actually well done, because it's just 100% pure awkwardness, and even when Aki and the doctor are talking to her, it's just like, it's just like you just want to be somewhere else. So kind of can definitely feel it for her. I did like this. It's the Kobayashi Maru 32nd century style. They're all like completely losing their load on the ship, and it's all running around and doing very, very exciting things. But what I found was funny is, like, where's all the explosions and the dead people and whatever else? If you remember Star Trek II, the Wrath of Khan, they actually had explosions on the simulated bridge, and, all the cast carket. And, if you remember McCoy, what about my performance as he drops dead? Mate, too wussy. It was all like, where was that? So, but yeah, this was actually a very, very good sequence, because they are clearly a dysfunctional unit. And that's why I think this needed to be covered off in last week's episode, which wasn't, because last week, aside from Trema not being around, it's almost like everybody was just continuing on as normal. Now, all of a sudden, we find, oh, no, they're not all happy. So and that's what I think why this episode actually worked.
Yeah, it got to be one of the worst Starship crews of all time. Like, oh, my God, just shockingly bad. But, yeah, it was good. It was really good to see the character from Discovery. I'm completely forgetting their name. But they were one of the only good parts, in my opinion, of Discovery. So, yeah, in terms of having them back on the bridge and everything, that was really good. And obviously later on we get the interaction with the other Discovery member. Spoiler.
Yeah, so you're talking about Reno and Tilly. So which we're going
to Reno's who we're talking. Okay, Reno. Yeah. Great character. And very funny to see the interaction. Just very disappointed in the crew. Because you would be. It was just terrible. Absolutely
it was pretty funny. What do I do? Where do I go? It's like, didn't you guys learn anything? So I mean,
but also.
What?
No, go ahead.
Even if you don't gel with the people around you, you should at least know what button to push.
But isn't it the captain's job to tell them what to do? In this scenario, they were all just at their stations pushing buttons. It didn't make any sense, but I guess it worked because they are all just in complete disarray at the moment. Interesting thing to put in when, like you said last week, everything seemed fine and dandy. But yeah.
See, what they need is, as they're walking out of the simulators, the War College are walking in at the cast that we didn't get to see. And it's just like, you guys suck. Watch how we do it. And of course, they wouldn't have any problems at all. So, I thought it was kind of interesting. But it was actually a very, very good sequence to see how disconnected they all really are. And as mentioned previously, the episode does highlight how they're all struggling after the Miyazaki, which, as I said, should have been covered off last week, because last week's episode, which we did not cover in DNA reviews, it was like, it was like 1 month later, and it was just like business as usual. And it's like, well, hang on, that's not how it's meant to be. So at least they're tackling it here. I mean, having an extra episode for it to fester, that's fine. But it did make last week's very, very weak compared to the really big one the week before. So at least It's almost like the Star Trek movies. You go from a high one to a low one back to a high one, and I think that's exactly what's occurred here. So here's a question for the Hive Trek mind out there. Is this the first time in the entire history of Star Trek that the word toilet has ever been mentioned? Now it's probably the first time we've ever heard the word testicles be used, right? That was completely out of left field. But Sam says she dropped the toothbrush in the toilet, and I go, because there used to be the running joke on Star Trek. Then you go, where does everybody go to the dunny? There's no dunny on any of the starships, and in the floor plans that you used to be able to get in the bridge blueprints. So I was just wondering if anybody out there can say, yes, in episode 6 of this series, Prodigy, Lower Decks, whatever, they actually mentioned the word toilet. So I just thought I'd highlight it here. So there you go.
Yep. Yeah. I have no idea.
No idea. No idea. Anyway, move on. All right. So Tilly did return. So this series seems to be a show that brings back a lot of actors from previous series.
Mm-hmm.
And when she mentioned that we're doing the thing with theatre, right? At the time, because I did not know what the story was, and Colin says he believes it is. They've never used the word toilet before. I thought if they're going to do a Once More with Feeling, for those who remember their Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and actually do a theatre show on the show, I'm turning off, right? Because I thought
you didn't like Subspace Rhapsody.
No,
From Strange New
I didn't
World.
Actually. But that wasn't a theatre show. That was actually they were doing singing in the show. But if they were going to put on a theatre play for the crew, I was ready to switch off, right? So from my perspective, it could have been an absolute train wreck, right? At this point, and I go, oh my God, where are they going with this? Because Tilly, for those who remember from Discovery, was a bit of a lightheaded kind of person, and as it turned out, what they did here actually worked exceptionally well. So it kind of saved itself. But initially, because when she comes on, she continues her Discovery persona of being lightheaded and a bit airy-fairy, and then it gets a bit serious later on. And I thought that was it works really, really well. So, very, very cool.
Yeah, Tilly, I actually didn't mind back in the Discovery days. She was one of the only characters I really remember. I remember thinking, yeah, she's fine. But I think it worked really well. Whoever wrote her parts in this episode really gave her the opportunity to shine, because she didn't just come across as a cadet. She was a teacher, and it was very interesting to hear. Obviously, she's off. She says she's off with the third years, so that makes you wonder. Okay, season 3, are we going to be getting off-world stuff instead of just on the Athena? But anyway, it introduced her in a really good way back into the show, and then she did a really great job. I know a lot of people were really worried about Tilly returning after the trailer. They showed a little clip of her. From what I understand, the fans did not like Tilly very much back in the Discovery days. It was good to see her come into a role that was actually decent this time around.
The argument they had with Tilly on Discovery was that she would never have gotten through Starfleet Academy, right, and actually served on a starship. As the joke was, look at poor old Wesley Crusher, right? He's way smarter than Tilly ever was, and he couldn't get in. So she was she was going to fail no matter what. But she was an entertaining and good character, right? So there was no issue there. But realistically, it was never going to work. So that was, I think, the issue in there. But they brought her into this, and she starts off being her Discovery self, if you will. And then it all changes as we get along. Now, what I did like is the idea that they're talking about the theatre thing, right? And of course, the concept of theatre is defining people and solving issues, which was a great concept because it's actually true. But not everybody goes with it. So the idea being that if you say you want to get people to gel together, you get them to work on a theatre production, doesn't mean actually to physically perform the play, but at least learn what the story's about and what the characters are about. And maybe that'll get people to sort of mesh together as one, because ultimately theatre is a team occupation. Yet not everybody will dial into it. There are a lot of people who just don't like acting, don't like talking and whatever else. And that's what they're trying to show in this show. And I really like that because clearly they're dealing with this trauma and they don't see the relevance of what it is they're trying to achieve, aside from Sam, who's really dialed into it. So I actually thought that was a very interesting sort of way of dealing with it. And maybe a lot of today's problems could be solved using a similar process. I don't know. But for people who are not gelling, it's a way of getting them to gel without realizing they're gelling. So if that makes sense. So I actually thought it was actually a really good way of looking at it. And I'm going to touch on in a few moments what it was that what the play was all about that they were talking,
Cool.
they were discussing and analysing. This is interesting. Sam has a bed, right? But does she actually sleep in it? Because later on we actually see her in the ship, and they put her into sleep mode. So I thought, yeah, okay. What does she do? Does she actually lay down and just switch off or recharge or whatever? I don't really know. And you've noticed too that she is definitely on what I classed here high on beans in this story, which leads into her breakdown. And I thought that was really well done, because initially when you see her, when Terima walks in and she's like jumping around and going crazy, it's like, oh my God, just settle down. But you know why? Because she's malfunctioning. So when she does break down, it actually makes a lot of sense. So I actually think that actually worked out really, really well. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely the way they were showing it was someone on the verge of a mental breakdown who might be autistic or something like that, in the sense that they don't understand social cues. And that was the whole thing. Obviously, later on, it's revealed that she doesn't understand her emotions because she never got the chance to learn them. And yeah, you see that with a lot of people with high functioning mental illness around emotions. The way she was acting, completely masking the pain, and it worked out really well. She did a great job. The glitching, and I don't know if you're going to bring it up in a moment, but was very Orville. Obviously,
no, actually, no, I didn't get that.
The whole story of having to go to Cask and get her fixed, that was just Isaac in the Orville. They did the same thing, took him back to his planet. Anyway, we digress. We know Orville's the blueprint that Star Trek has to follow now. But yeah, obviously it was very well portrayed in my opinion. I know a lot of people were really worried about Sam, the character from the trailers, but every episode we get her in, she just gets better and better, I think.
Indeed. So yeah, it's all building up to something, we just don't know what. I love this sequence, right? This really worked for me when they said, "Oh, what do you want to drink?" Something with a proof. Well, that came from Reno. Reno in Discovery had some fantastic dialogue. The one-line quips were just fantastic, and this whole thing together was really good. It really worked, and it really gelled, and it just reminds you of what it's like when people just get together for a bit of a hangout and a bit of a chill out. They've got a problem. They've got to try and work out how to deal with it and how they're going to get through it. And I thought for a simple sequence of just three people getting together and just having a bit of a hangout, I actually thought it worked really well. So I've got to give the production people definitely plaudits for that. Now, this one's interesting. Craig has a cold, right? He's sneezing his head off and whatever, and he ends up leaving for most of the episode, right? But he does return towards the end. I thought he was gone for the whole way through, but he does return at the end. And I was just wondering if that's actually leading to something later down the track, because why would you put that in? I mean, unless there's a reason they said to the actor they didn't want him around. Once again, they didn't have enough money. Give him an excuse to kick him out the door, bring him back at the end of it. I don't know what the deal was with that. So I don't know if you saw anything of that or didn't don't have any thoughts and opinions. Yep.
I did see a post a while ago showing the salaries per episode of each person, and he was, I think, one of the highest paid for the students. So it could have been just getting him out of the episode, because obviously he's been a central role in multiple in the course of the season so far. So maybe it was a way to get him out. I don't know if the season has time to do an episode where it shows what he was doing while they were doing that. But yeah, I don't know why they did it. Maybe he actually had a cold, the actor. I know that sometimes that is brought in if they were on a tight schedule in filming. I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting because I'm not sure if it's ever, have we seen a Klingon get sick with something like a cold? But also, it's a cold. Would they not have fixed the common cold by this century?
Like, yeah, you're right. Get the injection
when she said,
it's fine.
Yeah, when she said, go back to your quarters and let it run its natural course, I'm like, why couldn't he just go to the doctor and get like a hypo or something and just get rid of the cold? Like, that's what I'd want to do. I wouldn't just want to sit through it unless, he's a Klingon and he has to go through it as some badge of honor thing. But I doubt
he's about as anti-Klingon. He's about as anti-Klingon as you can get. Really, so I don't know. It's a good point, though.
Yeah. Like, I would hope that they would have had that cured by now. If they're curing cancer, surely they can cure the common cold.
That's a
You
very
know?
good point. It's
But
it's an
anyway,
interesting one.
yeah.
So it
Yeah.
would be cute. I don't think they will, but it'd be funny if like 2 seasons from now, Craig suddenly starts getting taken over by aliens and go, I remember we had a common cold way back when. It was an alien infestation and it's just been manifesting over so many years. I don't know. Anyway, look, it doesn't matter, but I thought it was just interesting. They get rid of him. They said, oh, piss off down to medical center. We just lose him. We just don't see him for like the next 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
as I said, I actually thought he was gone for the whole lot, but they brought him back towards the end. Colin said, Sam's situation with emotion simulates Data's experience when he activated the emotion chip. Yes, that's a very good point, actually. I hadn't really thought about that, but yes, definitely. The only thing was that Data was a much more of an established character, so when he did have the emotions kick in, which I think was in, Jesus, First Contact, if I recall, yeah, you can understand he's the poor bastard trying to deal with it all, whereas Sam, it's slightly different because it's a new series and a new character, but yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of mirroring going on there. So Sam picks out the play, reads 10,000 million friggin' plays, right, with the eyes going completely bozo, which I thought was kind of cool. Except at one point she talks to Trema, which means she missed about 10,000 pages. Got to go back and reread those. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Butler did it. Oh, hang on. What have I missed?
Yeah.
So she's doing the play called Our Town. So for those who don't know, Our Town was written in 1938, but is set in 1901. A lot of the stuff that they describe in the episode is actually how the play was. As noted, yeah, the stage manager is actually the main character, but Emily is the protagonist. And it's actually quite interesting because when Tilly says, I know that play, it's perfect, she would say that because in real life, Mary Wiseman actually played Emily previously in a performance when she was at acting school. So how about that? So, yeah, and I get the feeling that a lot of people now, like I did, going to be researching Our Town and go, oh, what's this all about? And it's like, it's really interesting to sort of read the story. And yeah, they've picked a really good one. They had to get permission from the author's estate to use it and do whatever else. And it's actually quite fascinating. It's apparently like one of America's greatest plays that we've ever written. So sorry, man.
Yeah,
go for it.
It's one of them. Yeah, I had heard of it. I didn't know what it was about or anything, but I knew it was one of those massive, 1930s plays from America that is like just one of their top. So I actually paused at this moment and read the full synopsis on Wikipedia just to get an idea of what happens in the play, which in a way spoiled what was going to happen because it was so easy, like in terms of the telegraphing what they were going to do. I was like, okay, well, this character works better with obviously Terima, Emily, and Sam obviously gives her the role later on when everything goes down. But reading it, I was like, oh, okay, that's where they're going with this. So it was quite genius. I wonder if they'd planned the episodes previous around being able to use Our Town, or whether they'd done everything and they'd just gotten some writer in and they were like, well, we need to do something to bring them all together. And they go, oh, well, everyone's life translates so perfectly to this play. I don't know. I would presume they had based it around it because it is so popular. But yeah.
Three things actually. So when she said, "Oh, it's from an ancient Earth thing," ancient to me, I thought, "Oh, it's like 1,000 years ago, or like Aristotle's or something." I was like, "Oh no, it's written in 1938." And you go, "Oh, that's right. Yeah, 1,000 years for those guys is like this deck." Freaking hell. I mean, that was that. Regarding the unbelievable, the common cold. You can't say what's really going to happen in the future in view. The cold virus keeps mutating, so I mean, they're never to be cured. Yeah, okay. Somebody's thinking about that a bit too much. And regarding what play to pick, it should have been the Book of the Mormon. Yeah, totally go with.
That would have been interesting. Yeah,
very, very cool. Anyway, so they've obviously gone to a lot of trouble, picked out this particular story, and at least it's a fascinating one. And all good. You watch all the sales now of this story will go through the roof. It's a bit like when Running Up That Hill went completely nuts on the charts after Stranger Things. So Sam, of course, has been absolutely on a massive buzz, and then out of nowhere, and it was out of nowhere, as a complete shutdown. And I thought, okay, that's just going to completely give everybody conniptions. And I thought straight away, yep, we've got no alternative. They've got to go off to Cask and to try and get her fixed up. And I thought this was actually very, very well done because she's been hiding this particular, all from the Miyazaki thing, right? And it's just been building up, and she's been hiding it, and it's all come to a massive head. So what will happen here in the story? They go in two different directions, right? The A story and the B story. You got the whole thing with Trema and Trema on this side, and you got the Doctor and Sam on this side. So I've split them up, right? I'm going to continue on with the Terima story, and then later on we'll get back to the Sam story. Okay, cool. So for those who are wondering. Now, I found this interesting, right? I always love the idea of it's because Tilly says we're going to keep on with the story. It's an example of a good actor, which the case is like Terima, trying to play an actor, Emily, but acting poorly because she can't act. So it's almost like for an actor to go against their natural instincts and say, no, don't give us your best performance, give us your worst performance. And I actually thought this was actually a really, really good sequence because they're all questioning why they're still going through. They've lost Sam, right? She's broken down. They're off the cast somewhere. And, poor Craig's off for the cold. And I just thought this was actually really, really well done because even though it's a very dialogue intense sequence, it actually makes a lot of sense. And just continuing on with that, Darham's comment about the reluctant wedding actually harks back to the previous episode where he was actually getting married. It was a shame that was such a weak episode, but I actually thought that was actually really interesting because he clearly isn't happy about what's going on at the moment regarding this entire situation. And we saw earlier in the episode he was actually being aggressive to the other cadets. But I actually thought there was a lot of good character development here, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, well, like I said, all of them just linked straight into the characters that they were given. It's almost like Tilly read all their files and went, this who's going to play this, whatever. And then it also, it makes you wonder, did Sam choose it because deep down she knew it would help them all come together? Because she is a hyper-intelligent android. Well, she's not an android, but, hologram thing. Was there did she know what she was doing? Was there a subconscious level? If she has a subconscious, I don't know. But yeah, it all fitted in very nicely into the story.
It could have been a lot worse, Sam could have said, I'm going to do this play from Louise Jamison, but there's only one cast member, so the rest of you guys have got nothing to do. So, yeah, it was very, very clever, definitely. And, of course, we get the scenario, and this is interesting. Terima gets a bit half-whacked into the rocket fuel, and it is the scenario where alcohol and emotions don't mix. And this was good for her to highlight just how sad and unhappy she is. And good on Mia for not taking advantage of it. So he's as the true gentleman, as they say. But I thought this was actually quite good because we didn't know where this was going to go. And she's dealing, as we said a couple of episodes ago after she killed all those dudes, she's dealing with a lot of PTSD and a lot of pent-up frustration and concerns and worries and doesn't know how to express herself in terms of trying to get that resolved. And I thought a lot of this, there's a lot of elements like that through this episode, but this is a particularly good one. So, because once you start getting drunk, it ends up people just go completely wacko because all the inhibitions are removed, and it could have gone in any direction. So, and in the end, he walks off and just leaves it to it, which leads me into just quickly the whole thing about he seems to have a really strong connection with Genesis, which I think Terima's picked up on. So it's very it's hinted in the show quite strongly that there's a bit of an attraction, even though it's platonic, I guess you could say, between Genesis and Mia, especially in the play later on, where he actually picks up because he's playing the husband and she's, as in Genesis, is playing the wife. So who knows where that's going to develop down the track, even though Mia himself is not really actively pursuing Genesis. So, yeah. Any thoughts?
Like we've said before, it's the classic love triangle they've added in, what high school drama would be without the classic love triangle? And is the thing where Genesis likes Mia sees her as a friend, and then, the other two are off, but she's getting jealous of Genesis, and it's a whole thing. It'll all work itself out eventually, I'm sure.
I don't think Mia and Genesis have an attraction to each other, or they've got clearly defined boundaries. But to Mia, that isn't seen it that way. She's actually seeing a connection that doesn't exist, and I think that could manifest itself later on. It may not. Who knows? Depends on how important these things are. But that's how I sort of interpret it, because she's clearly seeing something that may not necessarily be there, even though all the signs are there. The signals are there, but the other two guys aren't exactly acting on it. So on the last episode of Soap, it is soap opera stuff, absolutely. So as we said, Starfleet Academy 90210, absolutely. Very, very cool. And finally, this was a really good moment, right? As like this episode was like just going up and up and up and up. And Tilly was excellent here, finally confronting the situation, right? Everyone is experiencing PTSD from Miyazaki. And I like when Tamira said she's like concerned about this and that, and everybody's dying and bloody, bloody, blah. And I think it's the brother turns around and says, well, we were all there at the same time. We all experienced it. And it got to admit, this is some pretty powerful stuff here. And I was really dialed into it. And I felt that Star Trek at this point, in this episode, in this scene, really achieved something very important where it does what it does best, which is educate about people, about themselves, how emotions work, how we are all part of like going through things together. And when you do go through a traumatic moment together, you've got to resolve it together. And Tilly was excellent in this sequence. She just, the whole la-di-da fluffy stuff was all out the window, and it was really hardcore and really serious. And Tilly just wouldn't let it go. And I thought, absolutely loved it. I thought this was really, really good.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, this went back to what makes Star Trek great in the sense of the way they deal with the hard issues, and they bring it all in such a way that is accessible to everyone, but also powerful on the screen as well. So it worked really well. Tilly had been playing, she'd really been leaning into the fun Dixie teacher, I think, and because that's all what we expect of her. And we saw a little bit of the real Tilly in the drinking scene with Ake and Reno, but now she's pushed the boundary and she really gets right in there, and it was really cool to see because we very rarely have seen Tilly be assertive in that way. But yeah, straight down, no bullshit, straight into the thing, So that it was a brilliant scene, really, really, really well done, and it was classic Star Trek.
Yeah, it really pushed the envelope and wouldn't let Terima off the hook. And I thought, and of course, in the end, what happens? And of course, Terima leaves, but it's what you got to do. And I thought, it's like, wow, that was really, really groovy. You really enjoyed it. And but then you've got to put the joke in there because it's always room for a joke. So we've got ourselves a 32nd century toothbrush, and I thought, mate, you got to whip out your 3D printer and start making duplicates of this.
Yeah.
Temu, here we go. I'm like, it's a brush with no brush.
Yeah, I was really looking at this. I was like, okay, so obviously it's probably like an ultraviolet light then that disinfects your teeth. It's probably what I was dialed right into this. I was like, okay, how are 32nd century toothbrushes a thing? So I don't know how it works, but I'm assuming it has to do with some sort of light or something out of it, because it looks like it's a light that cleans your teeth. I don't know, but it was cool. At least it wasn't just, your $2 drugstore toothbrush, and they haven't, done anything with a toothbrush in 1,000 years.
Well, you can almost bet the props department spent ages agonizing over what it's going to look like. How does it work? It'll have to be, there'll be a book written somewhere, right? That someone has to retcon and say, well, this thing is like, as said here, it's a sonic toothbrush. I was thinking that actually you would use sound to get, you're thinking, so there's no physical brushes, nothing actually gets touched. It just goes, but that was very, very clever. But a lot of people probably would have been agonizing that, thinking, oh my God, how is a toothbrush going to look? So, I thought that was actually very, very cool. And finally, at the end of it all with these guys, they all get together, their issues are resolved, and as I've said there for now, and they go through the play thing. And I must admit, it was pretty good when the brother, whose name I can never remember, gets up and starts doing the role of the stage manager, and the others realize, we've got to get up and get into it as well. And of course, Terima joins them at the end. It was a really good moment. I really dialed into this in a big way. Funnily enough, I don't know if you have done amateur theatre, so have I.
Yes.
And sometimes to get over an issue, just like, mate, pick up the scripts and just start reading and fall into the characters and start making shit happen. And it was really, really cool. So loved it for this story. Yeah.
It finally paid off having the brother there. I've kind of been thinking every week, my God, when is he going to do something? He's just there. He's just one of them. And, good for him. He was the mascot on the playing team. Fantastic. When are you going to do something that is worthwhile? And then he did. And it was really good. And it brought everyone together. And it was a really beautiful montage that they did. And going through it, and it really did bring everyone together. So I'm hoping now for the rest of the season, because I think we've only got 2 episodes left, that we see some just stories where they're all one again would be really good.
Yep, no, totally agree. Very good, very groovy. So that was unlike I think it was a couple of weeks ago we had an episode where the A story was great, but the B story was horrendous. That was where they're going to do the ambassador thing, right? Whereas in this we split into A and B, and both of them are great because that resolved that end, right? And on the other side of the coin, we're dealing with what happens with Sam, right? And throughout this entire series, we've always wondered why the Doctor hasn't connected with her. Made a point of saying, I'm not your mentor, I'm not your friend, and all this sort of thing, and say, okay, what is your deal, dude? What is the problem? And I like the idea they're on the ship flying to Kask, and he's just completely got the shields up, and it's like, dude, what is your issue? So I don't think anybody would have guessed what it was. But I mean, I think we could take guesses and say, oh, okay, I think it's because she's from Kask and he's not. He's a hologram created by Zimmerman, whatever else. We're all completely off the mark. But I did like the fact she gets herself worked up in a state where she's got to shut down, and she wants to be human and doesn't. It just can't. Which is the data scenario that Colin mentioned earlier. So. And I did also like the fact that there's actually more, for those who missed it earlier, more background history on our town, who created it, who wrote it, what's it all about. And of course, it does come around to the whole thing of the importance of memories, good ones, bad ones, whatever. It's all part of being human. And there's a lot to take on board for this. It's a little bit deep, I think, and some people will take it at face value, while others will really take something from it. But ironically, if it turns out that in the distant future, 20 years from now, people say, well, I don't remember anything from Starfleet Academy, but I remember this one episode they talked about this show, this thing. That will actually be a positive memory. So I thought, yeah, very good. All power to them.
Yeah, it was a really great sequence in the shuttle. It's brought the Doctor into it more. Obviously, he's kind of just been around in the last few, doing his thing. It was very cool to see a Doctor-centric episode. RK doing what RK does best and sitting in a chair funny. It's a trait, and I really love it. I know a lot of people online hate it, but I think it's brilliant. You got to do something to differentiate yourself from the captains these days. Like every captain from Archer has just disappeared in people's minds because they're not really anything special, except Pike. But Pike arguably is pre-TOS. But you're looking at a new captain doing a new thing, and you don't need shoes in the future. So.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. Some people really get hung up on these things and go, seriously? Is that what you're focusing on? The fact that she sits in the chair in a different way? It's like, oh, gee, buzz. What the hell? Let them, anyway, it doesn't matter. So, yes, they're the kind of people when they argue, you just go, I'm just going to switch off and talk about something a bit more interesting. I'll tell you what is interesting, though. First, we had cubes in space. Now it's hexagons.
Yeah,
it literally is the shape of things to come.
Crazy visuals. They've thrown a lot of budget into this show. I thought it looked really cool because what would a hologram's planet look like? I guess not a planet. It would look like a giant machine.
The reason why they got extra budget to play with is because they've kicked the actor who plays Craig off the show.
And they've saved all that money on the fabric by having it half cut off. So.
Mate, tell you what, don't bring me up, don't get me started on that fabric. So anyway, we go to Kask, which I thought was kind of cool, right? Yeah. Now, my first observation was I've called it the Orson voice, because you remember when Sam was talking to Orson a couple of episodes ago, it was a really hard ass, really nasty sort of dude. They've really toned it down now, and it's a lot more gentle than the previous one, and I really liked that. Remember I said I thought it should have been a female voice. Anyway, at least they've changed the voice now. It's not like some dude with a carrot up his ass. And the idea that first things first is like, isn't it lucky that Cass could say, shit, we got an organic coming. So we just whip up an oxygen environment so they can breathe to start with? That's kind of cool. And the whole black and white thing I thought was kind of groovy. So, this was actually very interesting to see where they're going to go with this, because they could have just left it all in color, but it was a nice feeling. And of course, the Cass, the dude, the Orson guy is actually in blue and everything else is black and white. But it was good because, okay, this is someone you can clearly, as in the voice is something you can really resonate with and connect with, because it's very soothing and not hard-edged. And I thought, okay, where are they going to go with this? And I like the idea that they said that have a look at Sam, and Sam is a bit busted, and they're going to have problems with it. And of course, then you get to this part where she says, "Can you hold my hand?" And he doesn't. It's like, even Lynn, my other half, was watching this. Oh, she cracked the shit big time. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Hold her hand. She needs emotional support. And
Yeah.
of course, at this point, we still don't know why the Doctor's so resistant the way he is. But God, that was rough, dude. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea why. I don't remember the episode with the Doctor's daughter, or the hologram creation daughter, where obviously he held her hand when she died, if a hologram can die. And that was a big callback to that. So I wonder if people who know Voyager really, really, really well picked up on that immediately and was like, that's what's going to happen. Or whether that, was a bit of a shock. But I was just sitting there like, dude, oh my God, hold her hand. Like, holy crap, that is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But it all made sense in the end, obviously. I really loved how you had one story in black and white, and then you had the other story was in color. And it worked really well. I don't know whose idea it was to make everything in black and white except the alien thing, but it worked. It looked really, really good.
Yeah, you think when they're doing the holding the hand thing, you think it was Aki was going to say, "Jesus Christ, dude!" But she just kept the trap shut.
She just stood there.
So
yeah,
no, but
she did
in the
nothing.
end,
yeah,
but to be fair, she knows the Doctor's situation, right? So we're working the assumption she knows the story, and she knows why he is the way he is. We, as the audience, didn't know, right? Effectively, but she, I guess, would know. That's my understanding of it, anyway. So we're at this sequence here, and I actually thought, oh, hang on. Are they actually going to kill the character off? Now, as it turned out, she does die and comes back. But I thought, oh, hang on, because we lost the Vulcan dude a few episodes back, and maybe they do have budgetary constraints. And I thought, will they actually kill Sam off? And I thought, as always the case with these things, there's two angles of looking at it. One is to say, if they do that, right, and you go back to the dudes that, they're doing the play, the Our Town play, and they go, yeah, Sam actually physically carked it, and she ain't coming back. That's tough for them to deal with. But then by the same token, you're saying, well, you can't kill too many characters off because otherwise you end up with all this empty space. So they do end up bringing Sam back. But at the time, I was thinking, oi, they're going to kill her, and we don't know how she's going to return at this point in the story. So I thought that was actually tackled really well, because part of me was thinking, oh my goodness, how are they going to address this when they go back to the station thing and say to everybody, no, she actually carked it on the table. So it's like, what did you think?
Yeah, well, it's a philosophical thing. Obviously, she does.
Yes.
They kill her and they rebirth her and whatever, and they give her the same memories. But the thing is she the same Sam? Is she going to be the same kind of person? Her personality is based all on how naive she is. So I wonder how she's going to fit in with the crew. I wouldn't be surprised they just gloss over it and she's just the same.
Back herself.
Again. But it was an interesting thing to think of. Obviously, I was thinking they can't kill her off. She's been such a central part of all the marketing for the show. But then I was like, they could pull a scream and, Drew Barrymore gets it in the first 5 minutes. So, who knows what they were going to do. I really didn't know if they were going to kill her off or not. If the Vulcan guy hadn't have died in the previous episodes, I would have immediately been on the train of, oh, yeah, she's going to live then. Because no one's died. But because he had died, I was like, oh, this show's, it's pushing boundaries. They might kill her.
Yeah. Yeah, because they did it in Strange New Worlds when they killed off A&R, and I thought, maybe they're ready to knock, because the Vulcan guy wasn't a main character, he was a background dude. But I thought, wouldn't it kill if they killed off a main person? It's like, imagine that. But I agree with you. Yeah, she's too important a character to lose. So, and I agree with you, and I was going to mention that later on too. Yeah, when we see her in the next episode, is she going to be completely different? It looks the same, but has a completely different personality. It's a very good point. So everything's revealed about what's going on. And funny enough, this episode harks back to a couple of episodes ago when we had Jake Sisko, where it seems to be the strongest episodes of this series tend to reference previous series. And so the Jake one was the Deep Space Nine one, and this one we're referencing Voyager. For those who don't know, it was the season 3 episode, Real Life. So it seems to be that where you're getting good writing is where we have a tentpole we can actually relate back to. And I just found that interesting. That was kind of mirroring the Deep Space Nine one. And for those who don't know exactly what happened, So the Doctor did actually create a complete new family in the holodeck on Voyager. And people like, I think it was Taurus and Paris, felt that they were just too artificial. They were just too fake. They just weren't real at all. So Taurus reprogrammed to be more realistic, which also included involving pain, loss, and of course, in the end, it was death, which the Doctor eventually ended up accepting, even though he wasn't happy about it, and he terminated the program. So that's what that was all about. So what they're asking is, if you had a holodeck yourself and you said, I could create any world that I want, would I make it like complete utopia where everything is just exactly as I want it? But if I do that, will I still enjoy it? Because there's no negatives of any description. And sometimes in life, you need negatives to produce positives. So that's what I think this was covering off. And now we finally get to say, oh, yeah, okay, we understand why he's been carrying this thing the whole way through. So, yeah, and I thought that was actually really, really good. So the problem will be, as you mentioned, people who didn't see the Voyager episode going, I can't relate. I never saw the show. I get it, but I don't get it. Will I go back and rewatch it? I don't know. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. And what it's saying is that it's looking at the scenario of where if you get a second chance at something, do you do it? Or do you just give up? And as I said, they're wallowing in self-pity and misery. And in this case, he has been wallowing in self-pity and misery, put all the shields up and whatever else. And it is like the lost love thing. You have love, you lose it. What do? You just never go out with anybody ever again? Or do you say, yes, I'll jump back on the horse and off we go? So, yeah, it's pretty deep stuff, dude.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. It was an absolutely beautiful sequence, what they did. All the flashbacks didn't really mean a huge lot to me because I don't remember the episode. Season 3, Voyager, I haven't watched that in like probably 10 years. So for me, I didn't remember any of it, but it was just really well done, and it progressed the Doctor's character so well. Like, he already had his full arc back in Voyager and was a completely rounded character, and yet you've put him in here and you're re-rounding him, and it worked really well. And I don't know if you're going to now jump into obviously the sequence that they do with Sam, but that was really well done as well. The growing up.
No. Yeah, no, yeah. I looked at that. At this point, I was running out of. I thought I've got so many images. We're going to just keep going. But yeah, I like the idea, that, and of course the time thing works out well. So in a few weeks, she ages 17 years, and that was actually, it was very well done, really well thought out, and it makes a lot of sense. So ultimately, say it's all well and good to produce a machine that is meant to just go out and just discover the world, but if there's not programmed with all this background history, it's going to struggle, which you could argue is very similar to the whole artificial intelligence thing that we have currently, where they're trying to build robots that look like people, and they just switch them on and go, well, you've been alive for 30 minutes, go out and experience life. And of course they can't. So that whole rediscovering himself, and of course it's good for the Doctor himself. So, even as a hologram, he's now got his own personality. So he's obviously a happy camper, and he gets to see her grow up, which is what you said there about whether she has a different personality, returns back to Starfleet Academy, and the world is good. So it worked out well for everybody in the end. So it was an episode that started off with a lot of misery and a lot of sadness, and finished with a lot of positivity. And I love this last shot, the cool final shot. I thought that was very well done.
Yeah.
Really well done. Yeah, that was a good win on their part. Yeah, loved it. Absolutely. It was fantastic. Just
replicating the show, that final shot, and it was, really, really well done. Obviously, the person who wrote this, I'm assuming, probably studied this play in theatre school or writing school or wherever they went and studied, especially if they learnt in America. This is one of their big ones. So, overall, this episode was just shy of the one with Paul Giamatti, because that was obviously so awesome and action-packed. But this was A grade. When Star Trek gets into the nitty-gritty, that's what this episode really did. And it really showed that this show has defied a lot of expectations, even if people online aren't saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are elements of the show that haven't gelled with people, and that's fair enough. It's an each to their own thing. So, I mean, it is history repeating itself. Next Generation struggled with an audience when it first came out, but, eventually it sort of built itself up. because the season of this is so short, it really has to hit the goals every single time. And this one, after last week's, which was a bit of a letdown, this one was like, oh, this is really shining. And I was watching with Lynn, and we're halfway through, and I was thinking, bloody hell, this is really going places, and I'm really dialed into it and extremely impressed. And I actually ran into people who asked me what I thought. And when I said I thought it was excellent, they actually were surprised because I thought I'd dislike it because it was so emotional. I go, no, I understand, because it's in the end, even though there's all these aliens in it, it is dealing with human emotions in a lot of ways, and how people deal with trauma and how they deal with sagas and issues in their lives, and how you can improve yourself. And there are things you can control, things you can't control, and how you sort of deal with it. So very, very well done. Apparently it's got the old critical acclaim thing going on. So
cool.
yeah, and unlike previous episodes where you can go, okay, I really like 90% of it, but the 10% was completely rubbish, except for the crap about the hemlines. This was excellent. I mean, right across the board, right? And there was not one part that I thought was weak, and that's pretty rare in modern day TV shows. So
I think the one thing it was missing was more warp slugs. I think, you introduced such a phenomenal idea in an episode, and you don't just run with it. Like, why is this not a whole show just about warp slugs going to Starfleet? That's my 2 cents. Best part of last week's episode, the warp slugs. So yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you were to book in the episodes, watch last week's episode and this one's together, this one shoots down last week's like massively. Now, my other half, Lynn, watched last week's, and actually in the end she liked it. I didn't. Aside from, even your warp slugs didn't do it for me. But after, it's almost like just push the rubbish aside. Let us give us a good one, and they gave us an absolutely outstanding one. And I didn't think the Paul Giamatti's one could be top, but this one was right up there, and I thought, I'm very, very impressed. So no, it was all good. Very groovy. What do you reckon, dude?
Yeah. I'm looking forward. Last 2 episodes. I'm guessing it's going to be a relatively sort of 2-parter.
Well, the mother has to come back into it, right? She's in control of some criminal organization. Mia's going to be having conniptions of what to do.
Yeah. So I did see a trailer pop up on social media, and it does have to do with the mother. The next episode. So I'm guessing that it's going to be it'll probably end on a cliffhanger, and they'll resolve it in the season final, or they might shock us all and pull a best of both worlds and do it like the old series used to do, where they'd have the first part at the end of one season, and then you'd have to wait a year for the next one to come out. But obviously it was a lot less of a wait back then. But we know that season 2's been filmed already.
It's finished, actually. I
believe
they wrapped up.
It's all they wrapped up in end of Feb. So I did see an article though that this is the first time in a decade that no Star Trek show or movie or anything has been greenlit or in development, because nothing past what they've filmed has been greenlit. So that's really interesting. It'll be are we going to continue with this stuff, or are they going to reboot everything again? And
I think so far from what we've seen, the series as a whole has worked. Where it's like had absolute winner chicken dinner episodes, there has, but overall I'm sure there'll be people who say, well, the positives are really, really positive, but the negatives are still there, right? And I think that's why I think in the end people say, no, I'd rather watch Strange New Worlds over this series, and I completely get that. So anyway, but this one was actually really, really cool, and I was walked away a very, very happy daggy. So for those who are interested, this is actually the end of the episode for this. Just quickly, this is the last time I get to talk about this, right? So don't forget, for those who are interested, on Saturday night, the big, massive trivia quiz that's being hosted by Austrek. So Austrek's a Star Trek fan club of Victoria who's celebrating their 50th year of existence this year. So in November 1976, so the club was launched, and still around 50 years later. How many fan clubs can you say that about? Not many. So, and when I'm talking online fan clubs, we're talking face-to-face meeting fan clubs. So we're having a big, it's a fundraising event for the 50th anniversary this Saturday to raise funds for the big event that's being held later in the year for those who can attend. So this will be the last time I mention this. And it's not just all Star Trek. It's a whole mixture of just about everything. So sci-fi, fantasy, and superheroes. It should be a
And
whale
Docky
of a
Who,
time.
there is a TARDIS.
There is a bit of Docky
the,
Who in there too. What questions will be there about Docky Who? One has to ask themselves. So there you go. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the end of us. I think we've only got 2 episodes left. Is there anything you want to say before we get ready to shovel off for this evening, sir?
No, looking forward to the last 2. Yeah, I think they should be good. It's all the main arc stuff, so we've been building towards it, or we really haven't, because they've done like 3 episodes on it, and the rest are just side stories. But it should be good. Yeah, 2 to go, 2 more weeks, and then it's all over. Then we have to wait for,
there you go.
Who knows how long.
Who knows, indeed. Very good.
Yeah.
As who knows, as in a Docky Who. Anyway, so there you go. We're going to depart. We'll see you all next Wednesday. So to talk a bit more about Starfleet Academy. So in the interim, be sure to party hard, rock on, and we'll catch you later. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.